It was yet another Wednesday morning at school. I slowly gathered my stuff and dragged myself to my math class. I was tired, extremely tired. The previous night was what is called Super Tuesday, a day when many US states decide who would be their Democratic Party nominee for 2020. I had stayed up later than usual that night, till around 1 a.m., as results from Western states trickled in. I find these elections really interesting because of how large of an impact they have. However, as next morning came by, I knew that none of that would help me in my math class. As I walked into class and to my desk, I noticed a few of my friends looking at me. When I asked them what had happened, they told me the unbearable. Michael Bloomberg had dropped out of the Democratic primary race. I yelped in despair and hit my head on the wall as I heard Kevin and Nishant, two of my friends, snicker in the background. I was sad and, quite frankly, annoyed, considering how much I had supported his campaign. After Miss Lowe told us to settle down and go to our seats, I couldn't concentrate on math. I couldn't stop thinking about this. This would be evident in my Instagram post that night. All that drama aside, one thing that I think personally sets me apart from most people is my age is my love and interest for politics. Hi, my name is Neelesh Thanasegaran, and I think that teens should be involved in politics because they need to be aware of important issues, they need to prepare themselves for the responsibility of voting, and they need to be active participants in our democracy. One important reason why teens should be involved in politics is because they need to be aware of important issues in our world. Though it may not always seem like it, politics, your politicians, and laws all have a huge effect on daily life. From small things, like the bumpy road your bus drives on, to zoning laws, to larger ones, like education and healthcare funding, politics affects it all. Not only do teens need to talk about the issues that affect them now, but they also need to be aware of what will affect them in their future. Things like climate policy and infrastructure projects may seem uninteresting now, but will have immense impacts on our future livelihood and well being. If teens have no idea or care for these issues now, how can we as a society expect them to do so in the future? If we want to make sure the future of our society is in good hands, we need to make sure that people are aware of such issues. Another major reason for why teens should be interested in politics is because they will be voting very soon. It may seem far away, but the age of 18 isn't really that far. As teens grow, they need to learn and know how to vote in order to properly participate in the democratic institutions that make up the United States. However, there are signs that teens don't really understand this. In fact, an exit poll conducted by Tufts University showed that youth voters aged 18 to 29 only made up between 5 to 19% of voters during crucial primary elections. One can see the effect of this during the 2020 Democratic primary election. For months, Senator Bernie Sanders was expected to get the party's nomination due to the fact of his overall appeal with younger people. In fact, BBC noted that he was the first choice for 50% of Democratic primary voters aged 18 to 38. However, due to the fact that voter turnout for younger people was especially low, Sanders lost the primaries of many states to former Vice President Joe Biden. The fact that young people not voting had this much of an impact on a candidate's performance shows just how powerful their vote is. However, it seems as if that teens and young people don't realize the importance of their vote. If we educate teens about their vote early on, preferably before they can vote, they will know the importance of voting and hopefully will vote in the future. Even with all these reasons for teens to be involved and interested in politics, it seems as if they are not. In fact, young people in general seem to be uninterested by our political system. One thing that they do seem to care about, however, are various social issues. When it comes to topics such as women's rights, climate change, or gun laws, young people have been known to be great advocates on social media and in other approaches, such as marches and sit-ins. Since they aren't afraid to show their support for causes in these ways, why aren't teens involved in politics? One major reason as to why they could be is because they feel disconnected by our political leaders. There are a few ways in which they can feel disconnected. According to the Congressional Research Service's membership of the 116th Congress, a profile, the average age of a U.S. Senator is just shy of 63 years old, while the average age of a U.S. Representative is just over 57. It also doesn't help that both men running for president in 2020 are both over the age of 70. While it is important for older people to be involved in Congress, they don't represent the whole demographics of the United States. However, something even more important than age is the views of said congressmen and women. This is another instance in which young people feel disconnected by our politicians. Their lack of understanding in many modern topics can show. For example, one of the most famous instances of this was when then Senator for Alaska, Ted Stevens, made a speech about net neutrality in a debate in 2006. In that speech, Senator Stevens used the term an internet to describe an email, among many other things. However, he is most noted for coining the internet as a series of tubes, which, while physically could be correct, still shows many misunderstandings that he and many members of Congress, or government in general, have had or do have about these important issues. Politicians saying things like this make it very hard for teens and young people in general to relate to and understand them. Nonetheless, this doesn't mean that teens should take the backseat in politics. Quite the contrary, actually. If teens want someone who properly understands the issues that they care about and could do something about it, the people for whom they must look for this job is themselves. If not, remarks akin to those of Senator Stevens will continue to define the American political landscape and, in turn, further alienate teens from politics. As you have probably realized by now, I'm unusually passionate about politics, but I think it's important to change that. It shouldn't be unusual for a teen like me to be interested in politics. Being involved in politics is in no way limited to, nor is just doing things like following candidates or publicly advocating for issues. Teens can do many things to be involved in politics, from just reading stories about recent political events to talking about important issues with friends or family. The impact of teens being involved in politics will always be great, but the impact of teens not being involved at all will always be far worse. It is of utmost importance that teens, and in fact all voters, do not forget nor do take for granted the right to vote. Across the world, the ability to do so is non existent. For example, before my parents immigrated to the US, they lived all their life amidst war and violence in Sri Lanka, a small island nation in Asia. While they were there, they could never vote in an election, despite being nearly 30 when they left, due to various reasons, such as long gaps between election years, unsafe voting locations, and threats made by terrorist organizations. Stories like these make me realize the importance of voting and politics. While I personally hope that everyone decides to be politically savvy and become really interested in politics as a result of this TED Talk, I understand that that's unreasonable. However, the least that I can hope for you is that you understand the importance of voting and why it is important for teens to be involved in politics. Thank you.